What's up YouTube, this is your friendly neighborhood movie nerd, here to update all of you on the annual movie news, reviews, and clues. So, with Civil War dropping this past weekend, I had to do more than just a review. Marvel has reached its 13th cinematic installment with flying colors, which is worth commemorating with more than just a regular review. So unlike my spoiler-free review, this review will be spoiler-heavy. So if you have not seen the movie, click out of this video, go watch it, and then come back in, okay? Good. So here is my official spoiler-filled review for Captain America: Civil War. So unlike my spoiler-free review, for this review what I'll be doing is breaking down the movie, piece by piece, examining it, and telling you the good and the bad, what I liked and what I didn't like. So first things first, the plot. So the movie starts off with 4 Avengers, Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, and Scarlet Witch, in Lagos, Nigeria. They're there to stop an old friend from Winter Soldier, Brock Rumlow, aka Crossbones, who's retired as both a Hydra agent and being taken seriously as a comic book villain. They're fighting all of his guys. Crossbones engages Cap, distracts him by talking about Bucky, then tries to commit suicide by setting up a bomb strapped to his chest. Wanda manages to encapsulate it with her magic before it goes off, and she tries to send it off into the air, but she doesn't send it nearly high enough before it explodes, killing a whole bunch of people in the building they're next to, and ultimately setting off the chain of events we're about to witness in the movie. Meanwhile, Tony Stark is giving a presentation at MIT, which basically ends with him giving out a bunch of money to all of the teenagers there. He then gets cornered by Alfred Woodard in the elevator, who unfortunately is not playing her character from Luke Cage, but an entirely different character. She basically spooks Tony by pulling out a picture of her son who died during the Avengers fight with Ultron and Sokovia. And this starts off Tony's storyline because this kid's death clearly adds to his already abundantly large list of demons. We then fast forward to the Avengers headquarters in upstate New York, where the Avengers are met with by the newly promoted Secretary of State Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross from the Incredible Hulk. I like how they used Ross to help tie the Incredible Hulk back into the universe, what with Mark Ruffalo replacing Ed Norton back in 2012. Ross basically tells the Avengers that despite all the good that they've done to help the world, there has just been too much collateral damage, which has caused the governments of the world to ratify this document called the Sokovia Accords, which will designate when and where to call in the Avengers. Tony and Cap, of course, start their famous argument here that will dissolve the Avengers. But the real problem comes later at the Accord signing in Vienna, where a bomb goes off, rocking the Accords and killing T'Chaka, the king of Wakanda. This is what continues the story similar to Nitro's explosion in New Haven in the comic storyline, but also serves to introduce Black Panther into the storyline, as this ultimately starts him on his quest for revenge, because the security footage shows that Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, was responsible. I'm gonna get into that a little later, but let me tell you, Chadwick Boseman kicked some serious ass, both literally and in the acting circuit, as the prince turned king of Wakanda. So this prompts Cap and Falcon to go after Bucky and brings him into conflict with T'Challa, who attacks Bucky as he's trying to escape from Special Forces. The chase scene that ensues is fantastic, the second example of the Russos' amazing style of directing and sense of action. After they're all arrested and brought in, Bucky's interrogated by a psychiatrist who turns out to be the film's main antagonist, Colonel Helmut Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl. I know a lot of viewers out there didn't like Zemo, thinking that he was just another wasted, terrible Marvel villain, but I have to disagree on a few things. The thing to understand about Zemo's involvement in this movie is that, yes, his plan is a bit convoluted, it doesn't really make sense at some points, but once you learn his motivations, those are what really set him apart from other Marvel villains. So Zemo causes Bucky to go on a rampage by reciting some trigger words from a book he stole from a Hydra agent. Bucky then proceeds to beat up Cap, Sam, Tony, Widow, Agent 13, and Black Panther before finally being taken down by Cap, who escapes with him and Sam. Now I'm going to break off to say that the chemistry between these three is on point from the moment they're on screen together. Sebastian Stan is so good at conveying Bucky's tortured demeanor as Bucky remembers each and every horrible, awful thing that Hydra had made him do, and the fact that people can still take advantage of him even after Hydra's collapse only adds to his torment. Bucky tells Cap and Sam that Zemo is heading to Siberia, which is where a compound containing other Winter Soldiers in cryo-freeze is located. The three of them then call in Clint, who proceeds to rescue Wanda from the compound as she's being held there by Vision. Wanda has a great moment where she literally sends Vision straight into the ground, showing the audience just how powerful she is. Unfortunately, this is also where one of my microscopic problems with the movie comes into the fold, and that's Hawkeye. I love Jeremy Renner. I have from day one since he first cameoed in the first Thor movie, but I really hate how everyone gives him such a bad rap. But come on, man, you have a wife and kids. What the hell are you doing in this conflict in the first place? And not only that, but on the side of resistance, just because Cap called you, and his excuse is that Cap is doing him a favor? Again, loved Renner's performance, glad he was back, but the explanation for him and why he was there in the first place just didn't seem as solid as the rest of the movie. Meanwhile, Tony and Nat begin bringing in their team as well, with Nat recruiting Panther while Tony visits Peter Parker. And if you don't know who Peter Parker is at this point, then just check out of life right now. I've seen 3 different actors play Spider-Man in my lifetime, and I can officially say that Tom Holland is my favorite Spider-Man of them all. He managed to perfectly balance the awkward teen with the wisecracking web slinger. He was hysterical in the airport fight scene, and most importantly, he convinced me that he was a kid. For once, this was an actual kid playing Spider-Man, not a 30-year-old man pretending to be a teenager. I've said it before, I didn't hate Tobey or Andrew's performances because Tobey was a good Peter Parker while Andrew was a good Spider-Man. Tom just gave me such a fresh sense of a character who had been done to death. Not only that, but he also managed to accomplish the origin story in 1 sentence, something that Sony couldn't get right with 5 movies. Also, shout out to Marissa Tomei, who gets the award for easily being the hottest Aunt May yet. Meanwhile, Steve, Sam, and Bucky meet up with Clint and Wanda at Leipzig Airport in Germany, where Cap is introduced to the latest MCU character, Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. Paul Rudd completely stole the show the minute he entered the screen, giving us all of the hilarious one-liners and schlubby charm that made him so perfect in Ant-Man. With Ant-Man's place in the story, I sort of had the same qualms that I did with Hawkeye, as with the whole "you have a daughter, why are you doing this?" But I was more willing to let that go with him because he's just so damn good with everyone else. So then Iron Man's team arrives, and so begins the greatest superhero action sequence I've ever seen. I'm not going to say it's the best action sequence in movie history because the church scene in Kingsman was way better, but it was certainly one of the more entertaining brawls that I've seen in a while. There was comedy in the fight, but it never felt forced, and the fight choreography was on par with Winter Soldier's fight choreography. I'm not going to say better, but it was certainly on par. Behind the scenes, I know the Russos brought in the directors of John Wick to help choreograph the fight sequences, and it certainly paid off. Spider-Man squaring off, first with Falcon Winter Soldier, and later with Cap, was great. Not to mention that when Ant-Man turned into Giant Man, I almost peed with excitement. So you had that fight sequence, which ended with Cap and Bucky escaping to Siberia with help from Widow, the other 4 getting arrested, and then Vision accidentally shooting down Rhodey, aka War Machine, as he's trying to hit Falcon, which shows a brief display of humanity for the android, something we've been seeing brief periods of throughout the movie, with Bettany once again killing it as the Vision. So Steve and Bucky head to Siberia, while the other 4 are imprisoned in the Raft Supermax prison in the middle of the ocean. Widow gets into hiding, and Tony has sent some security footage that shows that Zemo impersonated Bucky for the bombing in Vienna and killed the actual psychiatrist who was supposed to interrogate him in Berlin, proving once again that Tony screwed up. Tony then heads to Siberia to find and help Captain Bucky, followed unknowingly by Panther, who's still after Bucky for revenge. Tony gets there, the 3 of them head into the main chamber where they find that Zemo's killed the other Winter Soldiers. This is the part that I felt the writing got a little weak for a couple of reasons. The first being that we just had a giant fight sequence so that we could get to this bunker to stop the other soldiers, and now they're all dead. And also the fact that the transition from when Tony gets there to the fight could have been done a little bit better. But it ends up leading to the best part of the movie. When Zemo shows the clip from the date that's been being bounced around all movie, December 16th, 1991, which was revealed to be the date that Tony's parents were brutally slaughtered by Bucky on orders from Hydra. This sends Tony into a massive rage, causing the fantastic 3-way fight between Cap, Tony, and Bucky, which ends with Tony blasting off Bucky's metal arm and Cap crippling Tony's armor by slamming it into the arc reactor. Meanwhile, outside, Panther confronts Zemo, who finally reveals his motivation for wanting to tear the Avengers apart. And that's that he lost his family in Sokovia. Not only is this Zemo's best moment, but it's also a great Panther moment as well, because he says since vengeance has caused Zemo to go down this path and caused the Avengers to fall apart, he'll no longer let it consume him. This is where I really appreciated Zemo as a villain. A, because his goals are on such a small scale compared to the other villains, and you really felt and understood his motivations and reasons for hating the Avengers once they were explained. He wasn't just this big grandiose villain with this ridiculous plan to take over a planet with another CGI armor, but also, unlike every villain that's come beforehand, his plan worked. He tore the Avengers apart. He did exactly what he wanted to. He didn't want them dead. He said that. He didn't want them dead. He wanted them torn apart, which is exactly what happened. So it ends with Steve getting Bucky out of there and Panther giving them asylum in Wakanda. Bucky volunteers to be put back in stasis until they can figure out how to remove all of Hydra's commands from his head, while Cap breaks out Sam, Clint, Wanda, and Scott from the raft. Another tiny plot point that I had a problem with was the fact that after everything that transpired in Siberia, Cap still sent Tony a letter apologizing to him for everything that happened. It was a tiny moment, but it just made everything feel like it had no meaning. That's okay though, because it was followed by my second favorite Stan Lee cameo yet. Number 1 is still Deadpool. So that's it. Like I said, I enjoyed this movie a lot, but I still only rank it at a 4.9 out of 5 for those tiny, minuscule details. In terms of ranking within the other MCU films, this is my second favorite, with Winter Soldier out-touching this film by a hair. Spider-Man was great, Black Panther was great, easily the best performances within the series so far from Evans and Downey Jr. And once again, props to the Russo brothers. These guys managed to turn Cap into a badass character with Winter Soldier and up the ante with this film. It didn't feel too full. Every hero got their moment, and I can't wait to see what they do with Infinity Wars. For more on me, follow me on Twitter at Movie Nerd Reviews, or go to my website, movienerdreviews.com. That's it. I'll see you next time.